This is one of a series of short films about some of the historic and prehistoric sites in South Wales. These are some of the more interesting, but not always well-known sites. These are the famous Rhondda Valleys, and we're going to visit an important Christian shrine called St Mary's Well, or Ffynnon Fawr, as it's known in Welsh. Close to the village of Penrhys, the history of St Mary's Holy Well goes back hundreds of years. So what is a holy well? We know that water naturally flows from the ground at wells and springs. In pre-Christian times, and also possibly the early Celtic Christian church, water coming from the ground would have seemed miraculous, a gift from God or the gods. There's a well-known example in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament where God commands Moses to strike a rock and water miraculously comes forth. And in medieval times, some springs and wells were believed to have magical healing properties. If people bathed their wounds or diseased body parts in them, or drank the water, miraculous cures were sometimes believed to take place. In the late medieval period, this was a major site of pilgrimage. We have records from the early 1500s of alleged cures for blindness, deafness, inability to walk, even the dead being brought back to life here. Many people came from across the country and beyond, we're told, to visit the well here for the chance of a cure. So let's take a closer look. Remember that this is a site of religious worship. So if you do pay a visit, please respect the site and the people who come here. We're 300 metres above sea level here, so quite high up for a holy well. You certainly get a feeling of power here, and yet also a sense of being small. Let's take a closer look. On the outside, it's built from local sandstone, with fairly thick walls for a small building. Probably late medieval in origin, though it's been restored several times since. It's 4.5 metres long, 3 metres wide, and the height varies due to the slope. It's about 3.8 metres where the ground is lowest. The long axis goes from the northeast of the building, where the spring enters, to the southwest, where the spring collects in a small reservoir inside the building. It then goes underneath and leaves and goes down the hill as the Nant Ffynnon Fawr, or the stream of the Well of Mary. Let's go inside. The interior has whitewashed walls and a vaulted roof. There are niches for carvings or offerings. There are stone benches all around so that worshippers can sit and rest, pray and bathe afflicted parts of the body. So what is so important about this shrine? We're joined by Professor Madeleine Gray, an expert in holy wells and the early Christianity of Wales. So this is an important pilgrimage site historically, but why is it important to us today?
Well, what is amazing about Penrhys, I think, is the way that it's just gone on being an important place. And it was, as you say, hugely important in the Middle Ages. They did their best to close it down in 1538, but somehow it just would not go away. People went on coming here. They said it was because the water helped their butter to churn. It's a good excuse. And there are all sorts of stories about people getting lost in the mist and being guided here by a lady with a strange light. And then, of course, there's the whole story of the estate, which has been through some really difficult times. It was meant to be a wonderful place to live. It was up on top of the hill, it had all electric houses, but it was built to very poor specifications, and it did become a bit of a dumping ground. And then the church was built here, a minister moved back up here, and it's had a terrific revival. And the well has always been part of that. They use water from the well in services in the church. So somehow this place has always had that sense of being somewhere where the boundaries between the worlds are quite thin. It's what you might call a touching place.
And it seems it's had a very long life.
Yeah.
Who originally built it and why?
Well, do you know, we don't really know. I mean, it would be nice to think it's pre-Christian or perhaps early Christian. We first know about it in the 15th century, but we think it had been here for some time by then. And, I mean, it could have been the early saints who built it. It was quite probably the monks who had established a Grange farm up on the hill. And it could have been as simple as that they needed water, and they built a little well house to keep the water supply clean. And you do quite often find that where holy people have lived near a well, then it becomes a holy well.
And so there are many holy wells across the country.
Yes.
But in the medieval period, this one became especially important. Why do you think that was?
I think actually what makes it for this one is the fact that as well as the well, you've got a miracle-working statue of the Virgin Mary in the little church up on the top of the hill.
Right.
I mean, there are all these stories about how the statue came to be there, and also all the stories about how it came to be taken away again. But I think that was really what made this one, the fact that there was so much here. You know, there was a whole sort of sacred landscape that people could interact with.
And you say it was taken away. What happened there?
Well, at the Reformation, the idea was that a lot of these statues, they had become a bit of a problem. They were standing between people and understanding. Instead of using the statue, thinking through the statue, people were just looking at the statue and really worshipping the statue. So it was supposed to have been taken away to London and burnt. I mean, there are stories about how it maybe wasn't, but we don't really know.
So they removed the star attraction
they
of
removed
the
the
shrine.
main focus, but people just went on using the well.
And funnily enough, after that statue was taken away, there's now a much larger, or at least a replacement statue of some sort at the top.
What happened with the Catholic revival in South Wales? Eventually a Catholic church was founded down in the Rhondda, and they actually bought the land on which the little medieval church stood and raised the money to put up the statue that you can see there now. So that's quite a modern statue up there.
It does sound like there's a kind of there's a revival there, and there's certainly modern backing behind this shrine.
People still come there in large numbers on pilgrimage. I mean, there's the group that I've been walking with today, but plenty of people come here with their churches or just because it is somehow a sort of holy place.
And what does the future hold then? If it's looking good at the moment, what does the future hold for this place?
Well, it is now on a much bigger pilgrimage route, which is going to go all around Wales. It's called the Cistercian Way because it links all the Cistercian abbey sites of Wales, of which this may have been one at one time. So, you know, we could be looking at the Welsh Compostela.
This holy site is now thriving, and it still has visitors today, both Christian and non-Christian. And it has listed building status, so hopefully it will be protected for the foreseeable future.